Hey, good morning. Welcome to the Morning Devo with Bo today. Hope you guys are doing good. It is what? January 15th. So 15th. Usually that means payday for a lot of people. So, hey, glad you're with me this morning. Do want to just remind you to be praying for everybody in California. Man, I noticed today on the weather that where we're from, exactly where we're from, like where I went to junior high school, all that is the winds are going to kick up and get going this morning, and then they're going to kind of die down. But those Santa Ana winds are going to be really kind of moving pretty good this morning. So just a real prayer of interceding really for them this morning, just hoping everybody does the right thing. No one does anything crazy. I say crazy because hurting a lot of people is nuts. It's just wrong. And for someone to light a fire or anything like that is, man, it's crazy. It's absolutely unbelievable that someone would do that. But, hey, there shouldn't be nothing that we're surprised with by the world of human beings. If there's anything that reading through the Bible has kind of showed us, is that humans are capable of all kinds of wild, not good things, and that we tend to move away from God in the most radical extremes. And so, hey, let's get into it. We're in Joel 3, and it is an all-pow day, meaning all-pow. If you lived in Hawaii, I lived in Kauai, but it means we're done. We're all finished up. We're wrapping up the book. And so it is a all-pow day. So let's get into it. Okay, Joel chapter 3. And in my morning devos, I just go through the Bible. That's kind of how I do it. A lot of people maybe piecemeal things in the Bible. I like to just roll right through it. And that way, when someone says something that you hear on a podcast about the Bible or about the translations of the Bible or the misinterpretations of the Bible, you have gone through the Bible and you go, oh, no, that's wrong. I have actually gone through the whole Bible and this is what it says, and this is why it says that. And so I love just going through the Bible. Now, I grew up a super progressive atheist kid in Southern California, didn't know the Bible, didn't go to church, didn't really know Christian people or especially their culture or anything like that. So this was something later on in my teenage years that I started reading. I started reading the Bible from Genesis on, and I simply wanted to learn the Bible. I was very influenced by reggae music and heavy metal music and the lyrics of those musicians. And lo and behold, it's amazing how many of them talked about heaven and hell and about they quoted the Bible. They talked about Pharaoh. They talked about Egypt. And I didn't understand any of that. One of them talked about the 4 horsemen. One of them talked about the number of the beast, these type of things. And it really opened up my eyes to, hey, maybe there's something to this. So anyway, I was very taught at a young age to very much hate the Bible, or not so much hate the Bible, but just to it's not a book for us, kind of thing. And anyway, so I never really touched it until those kind of latter teenage years, and then it really just jumped off the page. So Joel chapter 3, you could check out the archives at either just my website, Bo Ouellette, that's just my name, OUELLETTE, a lot of vowels, so it's BoOuellette.com, or you can go to my YouTube channel and just go to Bo Ouellette on YouTube, and you can look at all the different books of the Bible I've gone over. Okay, so it says at the time of those events, so it's kind of picking up from chapter 2. Sun will be turned, it says, what did it say? The sun will become dark and the moon will turn to red blood. And it says, before the great and terrible day of the Lord arrives. This is talking about the day of the Lord, not a good day. It keeps describing the day of the Lord as a day of destruction and a pretty intense judgment on Israel. And that Israel is kind of the focus of this. But it seems to be even brought out worldwide. And this is what we get, obviously, in New Testament books like the book of Revelation especially. But Jesus spoke on this. Matthew chapter 24, Luke chapter 21. these are very prominent teachings of Jesus about this period, about what Joel's speaking of 800 years or so before Jesus, right? So Jesus picks up on it, of course, and shares this truth too, that there's going to be this accountability in the end. And it says, and at that time of those events, says the Lord, when I restore the prosperity of Judah and Jerusalem, I will gather the armies of the world into the valley of Jehoshaphat. So it's kind of interesting that towards the end, it sounds like this day of the Lord, this day of destruction, there's going to be a prosperity of Judah and Jerusalem. Jerusalem will be doing well. The southern kingdoms will be doing well. It seems like it's going to be going good. And it says, then the armies will be gathered in this valley of Jehoshaphat, and there I will judge them. A valley of decision, you could say, right? A valley of decision. How are you doing? Judgment is here. And it says, and I will judge them for harming my people, my special possession. Very interesting. And I don't know how much more clear this can get. And we've seen this repetitively spoken in the Bible, where there is this incredible judgment on Israel. I mean, there is words being said about the Jewish people that are incredible from the Almighty. I mean, hardcore, this is what you're like. And what you're like is this. And what Yahweh says through the prophets and through the ministers is intense. It is wow, right? It's like if you went up and called someone that, it might, that might not be a good thing to do at all, right? It's pretty intense. It wouldn't be received well. And I'm not asking anybody do that. But Yahweh, the deity, has this covenant with Israel. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and that crew. And it is a special relationship. They have always been called God's special possession, that kind of idea. And there's it's like a marriage. You think about that your spouse should be special to you, right? Hopefully they're special, like there's something different about them than the other people out there. That's why, you're married to them. And this is how it is depicted in all this writing that we have kind of read over, and we see that. So there is this special relationship or covenant between Yahweh and the Hebrew nation, and it's to reveal the truth. One of them is to reveal the truth of Yahweh, is to declare the glory of God. And so we see that there's going to come a time where the armies of the world will gather in the valley of Jehoshaphat. You might have heard of something called Armageddon. Hold on to that. And it says, there I will judge them, right? And for harming my people. So it's interesting. There's people that want to harm the Hebrew nation, Israel. And it seems like Yahweh is taking note, man. Now, this doesn't mean that there aren't Jews or Hebrews that go astray and do wrong things and that need to be called out, just like anybody of any background. Hey, that person did the wrong thing. This person's, that geopolitically they're doing the wrong thing. That's all understandable. We get that. But ultimately, what we see is there's also people that have a hatred for that particular group, those people. And we see that in our world too. So we have to differentiate, I think, between the two. Between someone just critiquing Israel and what Israel does maybe politically or geopolitically and things like that. And hey, this is wrong and that's wrong. What you did here is wrong and this is wrong. And that's one thing. But it's another thing to hate the people group and want them annihilated. So there is a distinction there. And it says these people wanted to harm Israel, right? A special possession. And so we have to kind of, be careful here, because we see that Yahweh really, really is going to hold people accountable for this. Now, I find in the New Testament something very cool in that Jesus talked about the millennial kingdom, this 1,000-year reign. And he talked about it that when the Son of Man comes in his glory with all the angels with him, that he will set up the sheep and the goats one on his right, one on his left. And he will say to the one side, hey, I remember you when you fed people, when you helped people out, and those people will respond, when did we do these things? And he said, when you did it to the least of my brethren, you did it to me. Go into the kingdom which has been prepared for you. And the entrance into the kingdom is predicated on how his brethren are being treated. Isn't that interesting? I find that really interesting that Yahweh says, hey, the way you treat Israel is you're going to be held accountable for that. And then I find it interesting that Jesus says, the way you get into the kingdom is how you treat my brethren. And I think you could take that in a couple ways. His brethren as, the spiritual brothers, Christians, people that follow him. And you can also treat it as his ethnic brothers as well. How you treat Israel. And that is, maybe Jesus is alluding to things like Joel chapter 3 of, hey, how you treat my brethren, Israel, is going to be whether you get into the kingdom or not, meaning the millennial kingdom. Very interesting. And this is for these people going through what's called this great period of Jacob's trouble, the tribulation. So there's a lot to unpack there as far as the Bible study goes, but I just find it real fascinating. What is my view of Israel? What is my view of the Hebrew nation? How do I speak of them? What do I think of them? Do I make good judgments? Do I find myself hating a particular group? Maybe not them, but maybe there's another group that I find myself being prejudiced against. So really, I guess the big thing in the Devo is, are you prejudiced? And have you really looked at that in your life? Sometimes we come from families that do have a prejudice, and we have to look at that. I grew up in a very big population of people, millions upon millions upon millions upon millions of people. Everybody was different. My French-Canadian background was different from the Russians and, people from Israel and people from Pakistan and there was people all over in my travels, like in just growing up, all over, I did not really think much about it. I just knew everybody was from different areas and certainly I was too at one point, but some people are from places where there's really only one group of people and they don't have a lot of diversity. And so sometimes, prejudices can creep in, and sometimes they creep in over generations, right? And that kind of thing. So, and it says, there I will judge him and for harming and his special possession, for scattering my people among the nations and dividing up my land. Okay, so for harming Israel, scattering Israel all over the place, we know we're talking about Israel here. And it says, in dividing up my land. So it's about Israel, right? And it says, they threw dice to decide which of my people would be their slaves. They traded boys to obtain prostitutes and sold girls for enough wine to get drunk. Ugh, God, selling people, sex trafficking, just the idea of human trafficking, is just selling people, is just unbelievable. But it's been in the world forever. It's just so crazy that we buy and sell people for all kinds of reasons. And man, if there's any ministries that, my heart goes out to, it's especially sex trafficking. I think of that and I just go, man, that's gnarly. And that's a ministry that all of us should, really want to help out in any way possible, because I don't know if there's anything worse than that, right? Being sold as a sex slave. But it says, what do you have against me, Tyre and Sidon? Those are ocean areas, right? By the beach crew. What do you have against me, Tyre and Sidon, in your cities of Philistia? You are trying to take revenge on me? If you are, then watch out. I will strike swiftly and pay you back for everything you have done. You have taken my silver and gold and all my precious treasures and have carried them off to pagan temples. You have sold the people of Judah and Jerusalem to the Greeks, so they could take them far from their homeland. But I will bring them back from all the places to which you have sold them. I will pay you back for everything you have done. Isn't that interesting? That the southern tribes, there was people in the southern tribes in Jerusalem that literally were taken away, sold as slaves to other places, to the Greeks. And it says, and they will sell them to the people of Arabia, a nation far away, and I, the Lord, have spoken. Say to the nations far and wide, get ready for war. Call out, you best warriors. Let all your fighting men advance for the attack. Hammer your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Train even your weaklings to be warriors. Come quickly, all you nations everywhere. Gather together in the valley. And now, O Lord, call out your warriors. Wow. A day of decision, a day of reckoning, a day of accountability. Everybody get into this valley, and it's time to roll, right? And get ready to rumble type of thing. And then it says, let the nations be called to arms. Let them march in the valley of Jehoshaphat. There I, the Lord, will sit and pronounce judgment on them all. Now notice it says, I, the Lord, Yahweh, capital Lord, the covenant name of God, will sit there, will be there. He will be present and will be ready to judge. Wow. God is always spoken of as coming to where? The earth. Isn't that interesting? This is all Old Testament. Yeah, that God would literally, Yahweh, the God who's revealed himself, the creator, would actually show up in a body on the planet. So I find that always fascinating when it speaks that way about God. So we shouldn't be surprised that of the incarnation, that God in human flesh. That's not a new idea. It's something that's spoken throughout the Jewish prophets and the Jewish scriptures, the Old Testament. Swing the sickle, for the harvest is ripe. Come tread the grapes, for the winepress is full. If you read the book of Revelation, you would kind of read this and go, oh, I've read this before. Yeah, it's Revelation is speaking of this time of Joel 3, this harvesting time, this time to harvest. The storage vats are overflowing with the wickedness of these people. So instead of the vats being stored with wine and vintage wine, the barns are all stored with wickedness. It's like the wickedness has built and built and built and built and built. Interesting. If the Bible's true, I think we should see that when we look at our world, just in a day-to-day world, we should see a lot of wickedness. That should be something. From all ethnic groups, man. Doesn't matter who you are. It's just a lot of wickedness going on. Let me ask you, do you see that in your world? Do you see that just when you observe? Do you see a lot of not so good things going on? And I think that's maybe a macro of that micro that's us. When you look at yourself and you go, hey God, I see a lot of flaws in me. And that's why maybe the Psalms say, search me, O Lord, see if there be any what? Wicked way in me, right? And lead me into the everlasting way, right? Help me with that wickedness that's in me, Yeah, because we're all just people. And everything's a reflection of us. So whatever we watch on TV, whatever we see on our tablets, whatever we see in our phones, everything, it doesn't matter what it is, it's a reflection of us, meaning we are the ones who have made it, right? It's something that's come out of our mind. Very interesting. It says, thousands upon thousands are waiting in the valley of decision. The day of the Lord will soon arrive. The sun and the moon will grow dark. The stars will no longer shine. The Lord's voice will roar from Zion and thunder from Jerusalem, the holy mountain. Isn't that interesting? The Lord's going to go where? To the holy mountain, to Jerusalem. Interesting. And the heavens and the earth will shake, but the Lord will be a refuge for his people, a strong fortress for the people of Israel. Very specific. So don't be surprised when you read the book of Revelation and you don't see much about the church. From chapter 4 on, there's no mention of the church. All we hear about is we get really this idea of we're speaking of Israel again, of the area of Jerusalem again, of the temple again, of the Hebrew nation again. Interesting. A period of time where God is going to hone in on Israel, the land, Jerusalem, the temple, and judgment for those that have hated Israel. Interesting, right? A specific time just for that. And it says, "Then you will know that I, the Lord your God, live in Zion, my holy mountain. Jerusalem will be holy forever." Right? Wow, that's a long time. And it says, "And foreign armies will never conquer her again. In the day, the mountains will drip with sweet wine, and the hills will flow with milk." Hey, isn't that cool? Yahweh's going to have some cool milk and some cool wine, you know? And it says, "And in that day," it says, "water will fill the stream beds of Judah, and the fountain will burst forth from the Lord's temple, watering the arid valley of acacias." Isn't that cool? You got great milk. You got great wine, and you got great water. And it's all bursting forth, right, from the Lord's temple. I mean, I just find this cool. The mountains, the Lord's temple. I mean, it's just neat. What I get from this is God gives us all the nutrition we need. God is the one who gives us what we really need, that good stuff, And it says, "But Egypt will become a wasteland, and Edom will become a wilderness, because they attacked the people of Judah and killed innocent people of the land. But Judah will be filled with people forever, and Jerusalem will endure through the generations. I will pardon my people's crimes, which I have not yet pardoned, and I, the Lord, will make my home in Jerusalem with my people." Unbelievable. God will once again, the idea is, it's a very Torah idea, very Book of Moses idea, very early on in the Bible idea. And it's the idea of God, once again, dwelling with his creation. Something that we saw at the very beginning of the Bible, but we saw it was very much disrupted. And then there's been a parting of the ways, if you will, right? A group of people that really, us humans, really are in rebellion. And then there is a reconciliation that takes place. So if you read the end of the book of Revelation, you're going to see it's very much like the end of Joel, where there is a judgment on the nations that attack and come after Israel and want to annihilate Israel. And there's going to be a king that comes to rescue Israel, and there will be a restoration of the people, the Hebrew nation, and there will be a new heaven and new earth where we dwell once again with our Creator. So you can see those themes just coming up and coming up. So that's kind of the book. I mean, that's Joel 3. And so, but it really gives some specifics of, you can't really symbolize all of it because there's some specific, places being mentioned, right? The Valley of Jehoshaphat, right? These different places that this is specifically talking about Israel. So you can try to, I guess, symbolize it. Well, what it really means is blah, 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 and that kind of thing. But if you just take it, for me, as just a SoCal kid, growing up, and I just read this, I'm going to say, well, this is Yahweh hanging out in Jerusalem. And this is Yahweh coming back on the planet. And he must have a body. And so, yeah, that kind of thing's going to happen. So if you just take it for what it says, to me, it makes a lot of sense. Why? Because there's a lot of turmoil in the world when it comes to Israel. There's a lot of turmoil in the world when it comes to the place of Jerusalem. There's a lot of people in our world that would love to annihilate the Jewish people and kill them. And that's sad, right? And it seems like there's something unique about this group of people. And it's their history, because their history shines the true and living God. meaning you can't really explain the life of Israel without talking about everything that's in the Bible. Their time of slavery in Egypt, their deliverance, their moving through the place known as the Middle East, the different leaders that they've had, things like that. Of course, the person of Jesus, all this. There's a lot of history there, and you can't just throw it out. So there's kind of something interesting about this people. And maybe that's why people really struggle with them in a lot of ways. So anyway, a very interesting book. I think how I focus on it maybe a little bit today is, once again, everybody's going to be accountable to God. And, God will hold people accountable that, look to me and maybe persecute me or laugh at me or mock me for my faith in Jesus. And I'm going to have to trust God with the way he's going to judge people. And this is what Jesus did when he was on the cross. It said when he was reviled, he did not revile in return, but he committed judgment into the Father's hands. See, when Jesus was being falsely judged, he did not retaliate, but he committed himself to him who judges righteously, meaning he committed himself to his Father and said, Father, you judge them. I'm going to give you the judgment on these people. Why does Jesus do that? He shows us how to live in peace, how to be able to love our enemies. And the way you do it is you have to commit judgment into the Lord's hands. And that's what we have to do with people, ultimately. We're going to have to just bring people before God and say, God, in our prayer life, you can judge them far greater than me. Help me not be irritable. Help me not be so frustrated where my life is consumed by these people, where I have a resentment and a hatred and it's just living with me, festering with me daily, every day. That's just where I can deliver that over to God and say, God, you can judge better. I am going to trust that you can judge these people far better than me. So, man, I hope that's a good application for you. Certainly is for me, man, that's for sure, because you can get bitter and bummed super quick. So anyway, hey, Pastor Bo signing off. Another book done. Super stoked. Thank you all for checking it out. Joel 3 in the books. We will start the book of Amos, tomorrow. So that'll be fun. Man, we're going to get through the Bible in no time. We'll talk to you later. Okay, bye-bye.